A single touch, lasting under 3 seconds, can send a surge of oxytocin through a woman's brain strong enough to make her feel emotionally connected to you for hours. That is not poetry, it is neuroscience. Yet most men have no idea which kinds of touch create that response and which ones quietly make a woman decide she never wants to see them again. Today, I am going to show you exactly which 7 touches can change everything. And number 5, honestly, that one almost feels unfair. Here's something most people will never say out loud. A mature woman does not fall in love with words. She has heard every compliment, read every sweet message, and sat through countless candlelit dinners where a man tried too hard to say the perfect thing. Words stopped impressing her a long time ago. So what actually moves her? What truly opens that guarded heart she has spent years protecting is something far more primal: touch. But not just any touch. Not the awkward, overly eager, "I saw this in a movie" kind of touch. I'm talking about specific, intentional, psychologically powerful touches that communicate what words simply cannot: safety, confidence, tenderness, desire, all without saying a single thing. Dr. Dr. Keltner, a psychologist at UC Berkeley, conducted a fascinating study where strangers were asked to communicate emotions through brief touches on the forearm. No words, no facial expressions, just touch. The result? People could correctly identify emotions like gratitude, love, and sympathy through touch alone with up to 78% accuracy. 78%. Your words wish they could be that effective. So if you have ever wondered why some men effortlessly create a sense of connection while others try everything and still end up hearing, "Let's just be friends," this is why. It's not about what they say, it's about how they touch. And a mature woman, one who has lived enough to understand exactly what she wants, responds to this on an entirely different level than someone in her 20s. Now, before I walk you through all 7 touches, let me warn you about something. 2 of them will seem so simple that you may be tempted to ignore them. Don't. Those are the ones mature women have told me make them feel things they cannot even explain. And the final touch, number 7, has such a powerful psychological effect that relationship therapists actually prescribe it to couples on the verge of separation. I'll explain why when we get there. Let's begin with the first touch that subtly rewires how she feels about you. The first is what I call the slow lower back guide. And before you dismiss it as basic gentleman behavior, listen closely, because the science behind it is remarkable. When you gently place your hand on the small of a woman's back, whether guiding her through a doorway, leading her through a crowd, or standing beside her, you are activating one of the most nerve-dense areas of the body. The lower back contains a large cluster of nerve endings connected directly to the brain's emotional processing centers. A slow, warm, confident hand placed there sends a signal that bypasses logic completely. But here's where most men get it wrong: speed and pressure matter. A quick pat feels like something her uncle would do. A firm push feels controlling. But a steady, warm placement of your full palm, with just enough pressure to communicate "I'm here, I'm aware of you," triggers what psychologists call a protective bonding response. Her nervous system interprets it as safety. Her brain releases oxytocin, and emotionally she begins associating your presence with calm. A mature woman especially feels this deeply because she has spent years being strong, handling everything on her own. When a man places his hand on her lower back with quiet confidence, it's not about control, it's about communication. It tells her she doesn't have to carry everything alone in that moment. For a woman who has carried her world on her own shoulders, that single gesture can feel more romantic than 100 roses. I once came across a comment from a woman in her late 40s who said, paraphrasing, "He put his hand on my back while we walked into a restaurant, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 15 years. I felt chosen." That's the power of this touch when done right. The second touch is the two-handed handhold. And this one is seriously underrated. Most people hold hands, that's nothing special. Teenagers do that. What I'm talking about is different. This is when you take her hand and then gently bring your other hand over it, cradling hers between both of yours. Maybe it happens during a conversation, in a quiet moment, or after she shares something vulnerable. This works because of something called bilateral stimulation. When both of your hands are engaged, it creates symmetrical sensory input that her brain interprets as full attention and emotional presence. Therapists even use bilateral touch in EMDR therapy to help people process emotional trauma. So when you hold her hand this way, you are quite literally sending her brain the message, "You're safe here. I'm fully present." For a mature woman, this is powerful, in the best way. She has likely spent years with men who were physically there but mentally somewhere else. Their body sat at the table, but their attention was on their phone, their work, or something else entirely. When you hold her hand with both of yours and truly look at her, you're giving her something she may have stopped believing existed: undivided, genuine presence. And that contrast is what makes it so impactful. After years of half-hearted affection, when she feels both of your hands around hers with intention and warmth, her mind immediately recognizes, this is different. And once a mature woman sees you as different, it's incredibly difficult for anyone else to compete with that. Touch number 3 is the one that catches many women off guard. It's the forehead touch. Not a kiss, we'll get to something similar later, but gently pressing your forehead against hers. Eyes naturally close, breathing sinks, and for a moment, everything else fades away. It may seem simple, but the psychological weight of this gesture is enormous. Dr. Sue Johnson, creator of emotionally focused therapy, describes what she calls bonding moments. Small interactions that activate the attachment system in adults just like a mother's touch does in infants. The forehead touch is one of the most powerful of these moments. Why? Because it requires vulnerability from both people. You cannot do it from a distance. You have to come close, slow down, and let your guard drop. For a mature woman who has built emotional walls high enough to filter out most of life's noise, this gesture feels like a quiet knock on a door she forgot existed. It doesn't demand anything. It doesn't escalate. It simply says, I'm here with you. A man who can do this without rushing or breaking the moment out of discomfort communicates more emotional intelligence than most people show in an entire relationship. Touch number 4 is incredibly effective, almost like a cheat code. This is the back of the neck touch. The nape of the neck is one of the most sensitive and vulnerable areas of the body. It's filled with nerve endings, and because it's not easily seen or protected, touching it creates a rapid mix of arousal and trust. Most touches trigger one or the other. This one triggers both. When a man gently places his hand there, perhaps while sitting beside her or leaning in to speak, her brain instantly evaluates, am I safe? Do I trust him? Does this feel good? If the answer is yes, the response is immediate. Her breathing shifts, her pupils widen, and dopamine and oxytocin are released together, the exact combination linked to romantic attachment. For a mature woman, this carries deeper meaning. She understands what this touch communicates: confidence without aggression, desire without neediness, familiarity without assumption. It's subtle, but powerful. And timing is everything. You don't do this with someone you just met. This is a progression, not a shortcut. Touch number 5 is the one I mentioned earlier, the one that feels almost unfair. It's the thumb stroke. This happens when you're already holding her hand or your hand is resting on her arm, shoulder, or knee, and your thumb slowly moves back and forth across her skin. It's subtle, slow, rhythmic. You don't point it out, you just do it naturally while continuing the conversation. This works because of specialized nerve fibers called C-tactile afferents, which respond specifically to gentle, slow stroking. These nerves connect directly to areas of the brain responsible for emotional bonding. Research from the University of Gothenburg shows this activates the insular cortex, the part of the brain linked to intimacy and emotional closeness. In simple terms, that small movement of your thumb is literally activating her brain's sense of connection. And because it's so understated, she may not consciously notice it, but her body does. Her emotions do. She begins to feel drawn to you in a way she may not even be able to explain. To her, it feels natural, effortless, like this is just who you are. And that belief is what makes it so powerful. Touch number 6 is what I call the silent pull. This is when you gently draw her closer without saying a word. Maybe your arm wraps around her shoulder, or your hand rests at her waist as you close the space between you. No announcement. No come here. Just action. This aligns with what attachment theory calls proximity seeking, the natural desire to reduce distance between people when there is emotional security. When you pull her closer, you're communicating, "I want you near me." For a mature woman, this can be deeply meaningful. Many have spent years feeling like closeness had to be earned. That they had to be attractive enough, agreeable enough, or accommodating enough to deserve affection. So when a man brings her closer simply because he wants her there, it shifts something inside her. It tells her she is wanted not for what she does, but for who she is. And that realization can be incredibly powerful. Finally, touch number 7, the one with the greatest psychological impact of all. The long hold hug. Not a quick embrace or a casual side hug, but a full, chest-to-chest hug that lasts at least 20 seconds. That number matters. Research published in Psychoneuroendocrinology shows that hugs lasting 20 seconds or more significantly increase oxytocin while lowering cortisol, the stress hormone. This means it doesn't just feel good, it physically reduces stress and shifts the body into a calm, receptive state. Relationship expert Dr. John Gottman has even recommended prolonged hugs as a tool to rebuild trust in struggling relationships. It's not just symbolic, it's scientifically supported. For a mature woman, this touch can be transformative. By this stage in life, she has likely experienced heartbreak, loss, or loneliness she rarely speaks about. She has learned to be strong because she had no other choice. When you hold her, really hold her, without rushing, without letting go too soon, something inside her softens. Not because she is weak, but because for once, she doesn't have to be strong. And that is the true power of touch. Not to impress her, but to give her relief, to let her rest, even if just for a moment. So now you have them. 7 touches, each grounded in psychology, neuroscience, and real-life experience. None of them require money, status, or perfection, just awareness, intention, and presence. But understanding these touches is only half the story. Because a mature woman won't sit and wait for you to figure this out, she will send signals of her own. Subtle, consistent signals that reveal exactly how she feels. The problem is, most men miss them completely. That's why you need to watch the next video. It breaks down the 6 behaviors a woman shows when she already wants to be closer to you. Because if you learn how to touch her the right way but fail to recognize when she's ready, none of this will matter. It's on your screen now. Click it. Your future self will thank you.